Welcome back to Strongman Personal Finance. I'm your host, Christopher Bell, certified public accountant, Army hero, and YouTuber that hates cryptocurrency and meme stocks like Tesla, NIO, and the 1,000 other stocks that other people like to talk about. If I intrigue you, if my beautiful hair this morning makes you want to laugh and smile, then go ahead and subscribe to my channel and hit the bell button for notifications. And don't forget to like my videos, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, I'm trying to take over YouTube and destroy all of these moronic, worthless clown YouTubers who know nothing and who have half of their entire stock portfolio in one freaking overvalued stock. Me, Kevin. Anyway, welcome back to Strongman Personal Finance. So I had a request, and this guy actually donated, some money to me to do this. So I was like, great. If you want to donate money to me, I'll take it, but I don't ask that you actually have to pay me money if you want a special request. Maybe I will one day if I have like 1 billion subscribers, but for right now I got some time on my hands. But I appreciate the donation, and I'm going to go ahead and answer this guy's question. So this guy is looking at working in the government accounting field. Now, I am a federal government accountant, and I think it's a pretty good job to have if you want great work-life balance, but also get decent pay and benefits. Because if you haven't watched my previous videos, government accountants, at least where I work, we can make up to GS-13 on the GS pay scale, which is about 90,000 something a year. And then you get you can compete for promotions to GS-14, 15, and maybe even get into the executive pay band, which they're called SESs. So you have the potential working for the government to make well into the 6-figure range if you want to become a supervisor. You also get a pension, you get health care, you get lots of time off, you get sick leave, you get paternity leave. Like I'm about to have a kid and I can get off up to 12 weeks. There's a ton of benefits to working for the federal government. The hardest part is getting into the federal government because a lot of jobs are given to soldiers or former military, disabled veterans. Those people generally get preference over, your average civilian. So if you want to work for the government, I would always recommend that you start in the military, do one tour, get out, go get looked at for, VA disability compensation, because even a low rating, you still qualify for extra preferential hiring when you apply for government jobs. So that's what I recommend. But there are cases of people just coming straight from the private sector into the federal government. It's just a lot harder. So I would rather take the easy route of doing the military first and then applying for the federal government. But that's that. Let's get to this guy's question. So he said, I want to know where I should be looking to work for the Fed. Should I go to that route coming out of school? I'm certain that unless something unforeseen happens, I will have my 2,080 hours of experience to come in at a GS-9. And if I get that, then I'll be skipping over the Big Four. So the Big Four is like the 4 largest public accounting firms. They do like auditing, taxation, consultancy. It's private sector. And I was actually in the same situation as this guy where I was considering working for public accounting, but I went straight to the government. So I see where he's coming from. And then he said, I also noticed that the certain city is the best bargain for any federal employee on the GS scale. They are paid a much higher rate than other parts of the country despite the low cost of living. So if I go feds, I might choose to live, there or there. Well, one thing I'll keep in mind is just because they're highly paid doesn't mean it's necessarily the greatest place for you to live. Because the difference in GS pay from area to area, it's not that different. But you also have to factor in quality of life, which is, I think, the main reason that you should work for the federal government. And if you live in that area and, your pay's a little bit higher, well, is there a lot of traffic? Do they make you come into work a lot in that area? It all depends on what happens at your job and how much time and energy you have to expend getting to work. So like I live in like a very low traffic area. I drive 2 minutes, literally 2 or 3 minutes, and I'm at work. I don't have to worry about traffic. And yeah, I'm not paid as much as other GSs in like higher paid areas, but I also spend a lot less money and time commuting to work, et cetera, et cetera. So you kind of have to factor that in as well. And then he says, immediate choice that comes to mind is a revenue agent for the IRS. What do you think? Part of me feels like they do some shady stuff and are the bad guys. Another part of me says they're just enforcing the law and making sure people are compliant with the tax code. Do I think the IRS is the bad guys? I don't think the IRS is the bad guys, okay? People that are shady with their taxes, I'm sure they think the IRS are the bad guys because they don't want to pay taxes, okay? But the IRS, I mean, most people at the IRS are not like these conniving, evil people that, oh, we're going to screw people over and make sure they pay extra tax. As long as you can actually work with the IRS. Like if you have a question about your tax liability or how to process or pay taxes, you can call the IRS and they'll help you out. Like they're not this evil force that's just screwing people over. So if you want to work in the taxation area of government, which there's nothing wrong with that. I think taxes are a great field and it's going to always be around. There's nothing wrong with the IRS. You know, you just have to kind of make sure that you live in an area that you want to live. Because even though you might love to work for the IRS, if they only have offices in certain high traffic, crappy areas, I wouldn't recommend you live there because your quality of life is going to suck, even though you're working for a cool agency. All right. And he says, the thing is, the IRS can pretty much work anywhere in the U.S. since the offices are everywhere. Okay, well, that's cool. That's good. I would definitely choose a place that you want to live. I also see there's a lot of opportunity in the IRS since there's always going to be work. I feel like it's much easier to get a GS-14 position in the IRS than other agencies. That's actually not true. It really depends on what agency you work for. Now, like I said, some agencies, when you get promoted, you're going to get like automatic promotions as long as you meet the standards and your supervisor approves it. Some agencies will only top out at GS-12 for automatic promotions, and then they make GS-13 positions supervisor positions. So you actually have to compete for GS-13. Where I work, we automatically go to 13, and then 14 and 15 are supervisor positions. So you want to pick an agency where you at least automatically promote as high as you can possibly go, GS-13. And then if you want to be a 14 or 15, you can compete for it then. But I don't know what the IRS does. They may top you out at GS-12, and then you have to compete for 13 and 14, which is just another layer of competition that you have to worry about. So it isn't, the IRS isn't like the top agency, especially where I work. I think I work for a really good agency, and I go to 13 automatically, which I like because let's say it takes a while to make 14. You never know. You could be competing with a bunch of old guard people that have been around forever, and it takes you forever to get 14. You can't plan on when you're going to get 14, no matter how good you are, okay? So I would at least go somewhere where you can top out high, and then eventually, if you hang around long enough, sure, you might get 14, 15. Are there other agencies that have their offices all over the states, like the IRS, other agencies where you have a semi-solid chance of gunning for 14 one day? Seems like most agencies and gigs are in DC, and there's no way I'm moving there. Yeah, I mean, there's tons of agencies everywhere. So I actually have a list that I pulled up, and when I'm done reading this, we'll start going through the list, and I'll kind of identify ones that may have offices around the world. But let's take NASA, for example. NASA has offices, or not offices, but centers in, I think, 9 different locations. There's centers in Maryland, which I wouldn't do that. There's centers in Virginia. There's a center in Florida. I think it's like Mississippi, Texas, California. That's a great agency to work for, and they have centers kind of around the country. They're not everywhere, but they have a decent amount of locations. And, especially one in Florida, that's pretty enticing. So just don't, you're right. You don't want to live in D.C. D.C. is a crap hole. You do not want to live there. You don't want to commute an hour each way every day. And it doesn't matter how much they pay you. It's not worth the money, okay? Then he said, I know the SEC, for example, is supposedly super prestigious, and only people who have worked at the Big Four and stuff go there from what I see. I mean, I don't know much about the Securities and Exchange Commission, like how to get hired there, but that sounds like a DC, specific place. I could be wrong, but I wouldn't. If it's in DC, don't do it. I heard ATF is a dumpster fire to avoid. Maybe you should also tell me which agencies to avoid. Well, I don't know much about the ATF. I'm speaking from my personal experience here. This may be controversial to some people, but I think you should avoid any military-related agencies. Because number one, they generally top out at lower pay grades. So like I was talking about with GS12, you might only top out at a GS11 or GS12 working for the Department of Defense as an accountant, and then you have to compete for 13s, 14s, 50s. On top of that, the quality of people, in my opinion, I don't think it's as good at the Department of Defense's accounting areas. And that's just because it's not always the case. You're going to have good people in every agency, but a lot of former military people, there's great people in the military, but there's also clowns in the military. And there's some clowns that hang around for 20 years just to get their little pension. And then they get out and then they go work for basically the Department of Defense. So if you're working there, you might run into a little bit of like maybe a little bit of discrimination, not because of like any like, racial characteristics, but because maybe you weren't in the military and then you have, your sergeant or a sergeant is like your boss and he likes the other sergeants that are below him or something like that. And you don't want to work at a place where people still think they have rank and they still think they're in the military, because when they have that mindset, they still, want to, apply their work with the military mindset of like strict hierarchy and stuff like that. Where I work, we're all on a first name basis, even the top dog, even the CFO. Okay, first name basis. I mean, of course, we still respect them because they're above us, but it's not super strict. Whereas if you went to the DOD, you might run into a bunch of clowns that are like, well, I used to be a captain, I used to be a major, so you better respect me. And you just don't want to deal with that, okay? Or you might have like bitter, E6s that retired. So I personally would never work for the DOD. When I was in the military, a lot of stuff in the military just never made sense to me. Like, I needed to get something fixed. The printer doesn't work. Well, the printer would stay broken for 3 months. Or the internet sucked. Or fixing something was always a hassle. It's a huge pain, at least from my experience, getting stuff done in the military. Whereas when I went to this agency I work at now, if I have a problem, I send a request in and it gets fixed. I couldn't believe it. Or if I email somebody, they get back to me quickly and they give me a really good, in-depth response. You try that in the military. You ask somebody a question, they might send you like a sentence response. Like, it just does. The military didn't make sense to me. That's just my personal experience. So I would personally stay away from Department of Defense. 100%. Don't do it. You don't want to deal with some of the people there. Some aren't bad, but some of the people there will probably suck. So don't do the DOD. Any other kind of militaristic, agencies, if you're into that, cool. Like, FBI, I guess ATF, if you're into that, okay, if you want to try to be cool, but they kind of give me DOD vibes. ATF, FBI, anything that is like military, quasi-military, I would personally stay away from, but that's really up to you. So take that advice. Anyways, there's like 400 agencies, so I don't expect you to give me every single one. Maybe there's like a top 10 to gun for and avoid, or another list you could direct me to. That'd be awesome. And then he says, the Pathways program allows me to apply 9 months before graduating. So I definitely will be sending out federal apps coming around August next year. Just want to know what positions are worth keeping an eye out for. Well, here's my opinion on getting a position. So I've talked the whole time about how, this agency might suck, or you don't want to do the DOD. If the DOD is the only position that gives you a job, you need to take it, work there, get converted out of the Pathways program, and then maybe try to make your way somewhere else, okay? So don't hold out for this one agency. And if you don't get that agency, I'm not going to be in the federal government. The hardest thing is getting into the system. That is the hardest thing to do. Now, once you're in the system, get certifications. I got my CPA. You need to get it because that makes you highly competitive because nobody gets the CPA. Maybe look into the CGFM, that's Certified Government Financial Manager. That's a government accounting specific certification. That'll set you apart. Maybe do Certified Internal Auditor, CIA, the certification. That's another certification because most people in the government don't do certifications because you really don't need it. But if you want to be able to be flexible and move around between agencies and most likely get hired, those certifications are going to help, okay? Like in my organization, there's probably 150, 200 accountants spread out everywhere doing different jobs, and maybe 5, 6, 7 have the CPA. Okay, so it just kind of helps you stand out. So I'd recommend you do that. Now, there's actually lists that they publish for top agencies. Let's see. Let me share my screen. All right. So here's basically it's a survey. We do a survey every year for the government, and they basically figure out the best place to work for agencies. So, I mean, I'll send you this website when I'm done, but this is the top 10. So you got NASA's on the top, no surprise, great work-life balance. Department of Health and Human Services, okay. Intelligence community, that gives me militaristic vibes, even though it's in the top 3. If you don't want to work with a bunch of military people or militaristic-minded people, you don't need to go there. Department of Commerce, Transportation, Department of VA, number 6, don't work for the VA, okay? That's where you're going to find a lot of, like, old military people. And there's nothing wrong with military people. I'm one, but there's some that are like, they take their military service too seriously, and they still think they're in the military. And I can't stand people like that, right? And they have Army, no. Department of Defense, no. Treasury, that would be the IRS. I think they fall under the Treasury. And then they have a bunch of other stuff. So I'll send you this link, and this should give you some ideas about what agencies to work for. But at the end of the day, you don't want to just, only focus on one agency. You want to get in the system however you can. Once you're in the system, get a bunch of certifications, work really hard, and then when you actually figure out what you want to do, then you can transfer to wherever you want to go in whatever state you want to go. So just be prepared to be flexible. All right. So I think that's it. Let's see, do I have any questions? Any tips gaining accounting is currently GS7 supply Department of, I don't know what DON is, but trying to move the accounting just got BS. Yeah. I mean, like, veterans, like, there's great veterans out there, don't get me wrong, but there's all these clowns and idiots that I'm still in the military. And I hate it. Like, I got out of the military to get away from that crap. And the last thing I'm going to do is go work for the Department of Defense and have to listen to some guy. Oh, I used to be a colonel. Oh, you better lock your heels, boy. You better call me by my last name and call me sir. It's like, no, I'm not doing that. But to gain experience in accounting, I mean, I would just get the CPA and then the CGFM. I mean, because you have such good work-life balance in the government, you have time to study for that stuff. There's no excuse, okay? If you work 40 hours a week, come home, study for 2 or 3 hours, and then enjoy the rest of your night. And before you know it, you'll have all these certifications. You'll be highly competitive, and you'll probably be able to move around wherever you want. So that's the number one thing you can do is get certifications, and that'll set you apart from the masses. But, man, I look like crap. Whatever. Maybe I'll shower. But anyway, that's it. If I didn't fully answer your question, just shoot me another email and I'll get back to you. Or I'll just send you a typed email. It's whatever. But please like, please subscribe. Oh, good morning, buddy. Yeah, I might go for a run and then come back and make some more videos because I'm on fire today. I'm feeling the fire of hatred for terrible YouTubers. But yeah, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you a little bit later today.